computer. Well, it is May 18th, and we are here for the technical steering committee for now Hyper, and no longer Hyper 63, but Hyper. Got my little roadmap here to update everyone. So in May, we wanted to announce the new brand Hyper IO and funding and team. Tyler is coming aboard in June, and Trip started May 10th. We're launching the new website probably tomorrow, maybe at most Thursday. And then we're gonna refine the free Hyper service, and it'll be dev.hyper.io. Much easier to sign up. And we're going to build a tutorial / workshop to create an API with the new Hyper service and publish that, do a video, etc. So that's all current, and I think we're on track for that. I know Tyler is working on the Dynamo DB adapter in his spare time, his spare time. But we'll probably be looking at that being implemented. My guess is around the end of June, July timeframe. And the other stuff is for June. We're going to do an announcement for private beta, and basically the thing that I'm thinking about is anyone that completes the workshop will get a discount code to get some Hyper swag. So any developer that signs up, completes the workshop, will get a free t-shirt essentially, or get whatever they want from the Hyper store for $25 or whatever. So I think that'll be cool. And do an online API developer workshop live stream for anyone that wants to do it as a group. And then we're going to start planning the SaaS product, the cloud product, and just really starting to polish off the documentation. And then July, we're going to really roll up our sleeves and start building the cloud product, and continuing to refine the open source product as well. The open source product will be, of course, a core of the cloud product. So expect to be able to do both, continue to build out the core open source product as well as the cloud SaaS product. And last time we talked about maybe putting together a bounty system for anyone who wants to build adapters or plugins, really explaining those better. And then kind of something open, future is maybe a marketplace where people might build an adapter and could theoretically, kind of charge for that if they wanted to. So that's the main update on the roadmap. Happy to show the latest website if you guys want to see it, or answer any questions from here.
Sounds good.
I'm hoping to have the Dynamo DB adapter done much earlier than end of June time, but yes, doing it in my spare time. But think I can swing it.
Cool.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Thanks to Robert. Pretty excited about this blog post coming out, kind of why start Hyper. And basically it's like soup to nuts, going through and really kind of the goal of just completely eliminating unintended technical debt, right? And you guys have heard me talk about that over and over again, but I try to really kind of lay it out and show that if we, put more of our specific code in pure functions and put more of our general code in implementation details, we get a cleaner, more maintainable product that can scale. So that should hit this week. And then the website. So Trip and I have been working on the website. We've built like a little CMS on top of Hyper, which was kind of cool to drive the FAQs. And, maybe I might be able to show some of that if we have time. But basically, the website is kind of speaking to developers at this point. That's the single voice of it right now. And really kind of describing the problem as technical debt, and the solution is Hyper, and here's our services. And then you can zoom into the product page, and it kind of gives you just a little bit of an API view of the Hyper service, kind of showing each service and what you can do with it. Again, not much, but just try to be clean and clear as possible. And then we've got the FAQ, which Trip's working on now. And this is all kind of CMS driven, which is kind of cool. And he's working on some of the text right now, but that's coming together. And then the company page, just really cool graphics, right? Our design team did a phenomenal job with these graphics, and I think I've got the copy at a pretty good state right now for this launch. We'll need a lot of refinement, but basically our focus is extensibility, scalability, flexibility, right? The right ilities. And then moving into documentation and working on cleaning that up, but just adding more of the same kind of style that the design team came up with, and working on the dev service and the workshop. Those are the two biggest pieces of the documentation to finish. So it's coming together, and we'll be moving everything to hyper.io, which will be cool. So it'll be docs.hyper.io, dev.hyper.io, or blog.hyper.io, all of that kind of stuff. So getting close to another step in the process. Any questions about that? Any thoughts or comments? And one other shout out to Robert for all of his review work. That's on the list to get done tomorrow. So we'll go through and update all of the accessibility stuff. So I haven't forgot that. I just wanted to get all the copies squared away before making those adjustments.
Let me know when you're ready for round 2.
All right. Will do.
No, it looks great. Like it's clean, it's clear, it's everything you look for in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and again, as it'll evolve, but hopefully we've got a good kind of skeleton structure to evolve with, and that's kind of the goal, and to start to get more people, more eyeballs on the Hyper brand and what it is. I think the messaging's coming together consistently and a little bit more clear. So I did a demo for someone this morning, and you know, did not have very many questions at the end. It was like 3 questions, so that was really good.
Was the demo to like a developer person, like a tech person, or?
Yeah, it was a tech person, a product manager for Oracle, and just a friend of mine giving some feedback. So
Sweet, excellent.
yeah. And yeah, I think that's all I have. This is more of a kind of mid-range update as we're executing on our roadmap. So there's not really a lot of decisions or brainstorming things to discuss, unless you guys have any, or have any questions, or have any recommendations on where we're going, and how we can maybe refine that a little bit. But the game plan is to get the site up, get a place where developers can start experimenting, and give them a little workshop where they can actually experiment, kind of get a feel and just get some feedback there.
Yeah, I just had one thing.
Yep.
It has to do with the beta idea. Do you have a list of people, or are you taking a list of people that would be on that? Because with this kind of launch, the thing that always I'll speak from my experience, but that gets me excited and gets other people involved too, and gets them excited, is when there's this like idea of like inclusiveness, but it's also exclusive, because it's like,
Right.
hey, we're only going to take this many, and so all of a sudden you're like, man, I don't want to miss out, like, and I want to get in on this early because it might be something that gets big. And so all of a sudden that's kind of, it becomes a only 10,000. Yeah, it's it builds a sense of urgency. That's what it's called in doing any kind of like product pushes or marketing for them. Yeah. So yeah, what's the plan with getting beta people?
Yeah. Great comment, and very, very, very true. I think the plan is to do a limited kind of beta, private beta, and there's a few people that are on the list that have expressed interest, right? And they're like, I'm happy to check it out. Just let me know when it's ready to check out. But then if you know of anyone, or if any of you guys know of anyone that should be on that list, let me know. And we may, do like 20, 25, and then open up another 20, 25, and use Charleston JS as a way to get invites, and then possibly open it up to other kind of networks like indie hackers, to do some signups, and maybe product hunt as well, over time. Just try to get early adopters and people that can really see that this could be something they would use, kind of get their eyeballs on it, and not just open it up to everyone, but use use the swag to try to it's one thing to get an account, it's another thing to kind of complete through the workshop and actually use the product. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? Is that a good plan? You got a better idea?
No, I think one thing to, if you're not, maybe this is included in that, is like if, let's say you take 25, which I think is totally manageable because I'm sorry, that's like the high end of being manageable for, you know, like 2 to 3 people. That's on the high end, but that's still, that's great. But that I would make sure that anybody else who's interested, like, you know, having a queue of people that, because I remember when Mailbox, I mean, this is totally different, but I just remember the sensation of when Mailbox.app, they got bought by Dropbox like, you know, 7 years ago. But Mailbox.app is so cool because it was like, you know, you're in this, you know, you're waiting for this super cool thing. There's this many people in line, like you're at this position. I'm not saying do that, but
Yeah.
the sensation of like, man, I can't wait till I've got access to this thing. It's like waiting for a movie to come out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just as long, just make sure anybody who wants in, if you've hit that number, like, cool, you know, hey, we've got this many people, we're gonna open this back up in many weeks, and you're top of the list, buddy.
Yep.
And I guess the other side of this too is to be prepared, which is the like build it and they will come mentality, like being prepared to have a real slow start where like, oh, either no one gets it or no one cares or no one has the bandwidth or no one sees the value yet.
Yep.
And being just ready to deal with that.
Yeah, no, it's you know, and that's why we're really trying to start the word now. And you know, these types of products are not like people sign up and start using them in their production app overnight. It requires a long kind of lead time, right? So that's very good advice.
Well, if it works out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
you know, we'll find out. You know, again, I think we are creating value right now for 2 customers. Got a really great testimonial from Travis at Sovereign, and you know, it's been kind of cool to see them literally iterate on a product that's in production now, and they're making changes, and Hyper's doing exactly what it is supposed to do. It's keeping all those changes in that application layer so they can iterate, and they're not having to wait for the back end to implement stuff. They're able to iterate and ship. And you know, to your point on your comment last night about the continuous delivery, they're effectively able to do continuous delivery because Hyper is the general implementation detail. You know, it gets out of the way, and they're not running into, oh, we need a queue to do this, or oh, we need a cache to do this. It's just all right there, and they can just pull the levers they need when they need them.
I guess you could implement your own feature flagging with Hyper.
No, not yet. We haven't.
I mean, if I were to, I mean, from a like, I'm using Hyper as my backend. I could just create a table, put stuff in it, like, you know, if I'm trying to think about this, like, you know, I've got a bunch of rows for the different features that we've got enabled and disabled, that we've maybe hooked up to like an admin interface, and then our front end is reading from that and just takes those keys and yeah.
We so one of the things that we've done some brainstorming about is this idea of starter kits. So like you know, the next question, you explain Hyper, and then the next question is, what do I use it for? Right. what can I use it for? Again, it's easy to say, well, you can use it for anything. Well, that's not helpful. So we're thinking about the notion of starter kits, and starter kits is maybe like a 60 to 70% done API of like all the core things. So you think of a feature flag system, that would be a nice little small starter kit where it shows kind of the core building blocks of doing it. And you could just pull that down and then apply your custom, kind of opinions on top of that. But it could save you, a ton of setup time. And one of the challenges with some of the store-bought solutions is you may run into a situation where the way that they do things don't fit the way that you need to do things, right? It doesn't work for your needs. So our hope is those starter kits kind of, like a SaaS starter kit. Here's all the basic stuff to put a SaaS product together, or a feature flag starter kit, or the one thing that the guy this morning said is like CMS is already done, but I think CMS starter kit is still worthwhile for learning, right? Learning how to use the system, how it works, keeping it simple. Anyway, I think there's a lot of value there of just having these starter kits that are kind of / tutorial / 60% done of a potential shippable thing.
Very cool. I dig the marketplace idea too, which makes me think, because you were talking about that for adapters.
Yeah, adapters, plugins, or even API kits, right?
Yeah, that starter kit idea. I mean, that could be. I guess that could be curated by y'all, but anyway, just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, again, there could be like you may have something very specific, like a matching system, right? You take these people that are looking for services and these people that have services and match them together. That could be something that's probably worth selling versus giving away. Same thing for like a conversational kit, right? Where it's conversational, connected to, all of the chat bot kind of services out there. Could be an adapter, could be a kit.
I think never mind. I won't. We're recording, but I think
Sure.
I think I saw a future client that you've got that might benefit from chat stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for letting me just brainstorm some stuff.
Casey, any thoughts, any feedback?
Not about the stuff that you were talking about just now, but whenever you guys are done with the bullet points of the meeting, I have some thoughts on the DynamoDB adapter, because I've been basically making something similar to that for the past few days at work.
Okay. Tyler, any comments on the agenda items?
Nothing for me. Everything's website's looking great. Excited for the roadmap. Excited to get more involved and just start banging things out. So all looks good.
Cool. So yeah, Casey, I'll give you the floor, and anything you want to discuss about DynamoDB. I'm sure Tyler would love to chat with you about that.
Cool. So the one thing I was looking at, I didn't realize that you were going to be working on that. So I was looking at actually making an adapter. I haven't done any, basically I've made some, like a little node library that does a few specific things. It's not as general as the adapter, but I was just looking at some of the schemas for it. And one of the only sort of challenge that I see with doing DynamoDB is the create document schema has one ID for basically like the primary key, but DynamoDB's primary key is made of partition key and the sort key. It's made of two things. So the only thing, I mean, you could do something like base 64 encode it beforehand and then pass that as the ID, but that's sort of, I guess, you'd be doing that on the business logic side, which is not really where you'd want to do that. You'd have to like remember that it's base 64 encoded to like pass it in. So I don't know if you guys have thought about like any good solutions to that particular thing. I mean, you could potentially just not do the sort key, but
In the sort key, like a secondary index.
you can make like indexes out of the sort key,
Okay.
but it's not. So the unique key is the combination of the partition key and the sort key. So you can have multiple, what in most DBs would be like the partition key, or would be like the primary key would be closer to the partition key, but you can have multiple of the same of either of those. So it's just the combination of the two that have to be unique. So it can't just be like a string, like a string. So
Yeah, Tyler, have you dug into that at all?
I haven't reconciled that yet, and just my thoughts around how to build the Dynamo DB adapter. I mean, to me, like the distinction between the partition key and a sort key seems like a detail that perhaps we don't want to expose to the user, because it's like the whole point of using, like, or one of the reasons to use Hyper is to not have to think about that and having a consistent API, and the adapter would handle underneath the hood how to reconcile like a partition key and a sort key. The sort key is optional, but perhaps like the first iteration just uses the partition key.
Mhm.
And then, if we have a use case for the sort key, perhaps the adapter handles that underneath the hood, but I think we would definitely don't want to expose that on the port specification, because then that's just exposing on the port one particular implementation of the data adapter,
Right.
or a particular tool. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if you do that, would you just have logic inside the adapter itself to ensure that it doesn't create like a duplicate? Because the partition key doesn't have to be unique.
Yeah, you would have to. Yeah, you would have to have as part of the adapter a check on that partition key, to make sure something doesn't already exist with that ID, or perhaps it's you provide an ID through like when you provide an ID through the port, that is the unique identifier, and then the adapter will also handle the deciding the partition key, and perhaps it's a good, yeah.
Can the sort key be the same thing? So like if you have partition key 1 and sort key 1, and then partition key 2, and then sort key 1, right? Then if you're always adding the same sort key for every one, then wouldn't it force the partition key to be unique?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's the combination of the two. So
Yeah.
if you just every time assumed that the ID was basically appended to both, then there'd be no way to duplicate it.
Something like that. And it could be exposed as a config setting, right? To set, the sort key to something. I guess it's digging down and understanding what the benefit is of having two unique identifiers to be one key. And there's other implementations that have created adapters from DynamoDB, like Level DB and Architect and some others that we could look at as well for inspiration.
I mean, with all that said, Casey, if you're already working on something, and you wanted to take a stab at the DynamoDB adapter, I have no issues with you pushing that forward, and then just like work that I've done, just pushing that up, and then you can use it as a reference, or just or not, whichever you'd prefer. But if you're already working on something,
we can coordinate later. I'll so the stuff that I'm working on is for my job, so I wouldn't be able to use it directly, but I mean, be a lot of the same stuff. I don't want to get you behind on it either, but I'll message you after.
Okay.
We can figure it out.
Okay, great. Yeah, but it's a good question. My initial thoughts on it is to just kind of to what Tom said.
Yeah.
Have the sort key be consistent, which forces the partition key to be unique. And that would sort of be the first iteration of the adapter. If we needed to change that, then we'd either have to have a more complex adapter or consider changing the port, which I think we want to scrutinize more heavily before we do that.
Cool.
Tom, any thoughts there?
Oh, I agree. I think the bigger challenge with DynamoDB is going to be their extremely verbose query language, and cross-referencing that to like the MongoDB kind of selector pattern. I think that's the big challenge with that, and avoiding scans, right? So we don't want to do scans unless we have to. Those are the two things that when I was researching it, those are the two things that kind of I looked at as like that's going to be fun to figure out.
I think when I was doing the Elasticsearch adapter, Elasticsearch has a huge API surface. There's so many different things you can do, and sort of but the search port is like pretty straightforward. And so when I was building up that adapter, I was just operating under the you aren't going to need it sort of mindset, and that instead of trying to figure out how to expose everything, and have the adapter do all these things that leverage the Elasticsearch API that just for the first iteration, just making it sort of dead simple. And then
Yep.
when a use case pops up, then we can just add to the adapter. And then if it's not possible to modify the adapter to handle more complex cases, then we would have to revisit looking at the port. But more often than not, I think we would just be able to update an adapter to add some additional functionality and then be done with it.
Yeah, and I think kind of driving that by use case, and I think these API starter kits will give us a good set of use cases to push these adapters and refine the complexity, but kind of start simple and expand when needed.
And you're talking about the scans for DynamoDB. So
Yep.
basically, like if you make an index out of some type of attribute, you can do a query without a scan, and it's generally like not best practice to use the scans anyway because they're like slow and they cost more money. So
Yep.
I doubt anybody would be too hungry for being able to scan anything.
Yeah, I think that the rub is to educate on creating the index, right? So we've got an endpoint to create an index, and with Mongo and Couch, they kind of if you're working with a small enough set of data, they basically don't yell at you for not having an index, and it'll work. But I think with Dynamo, in order not to do the scans, you have to create those secondary indexes. But I don't have enough hands-on experience to be super correct about that either.
I think you can, well, you can query data using like an alternate key with a secondary index. Like if you do want to, Tom, you're right, to query like via an alternate key, you have to create those secondary indexes. But yeah, they're not like, if you're just querying by the primary, you don't need them, obviously.
Yeah. And it's not hard. It's just getting the documentation there so people, don't try to query on all these document properties and not get anything and wonder why they're not getting anything. Oh, I need to create an index kind of thing.
That's sort of an interesting side of it that I don't know how much I've ever like thought in depth of, which is that the code would be the same for using these, but you'd still have to probably, not for all of them, but for some of them, still say, okay, well, you can use this code, but it's not going to work for this reason. Is the best way to handle that just, having like a recommendation for each individual adapter for like how you use it pretty much?
Yeah, it's a great question and some thought that I've given into it. And again, kind of borrowing from some of the Amazon data architects of, when you're kind of doing data modeling in relational database space, you're thinking in tables and foreign keys and all of that. I think one of the things with designing towards an API is you can add certain patterns to that. Like when you're building your API, instead of trying to think so much in models, think about how you're going to access data and really go through that pattern of here's all the queries that I'm going to need to do my use cases. And that kind of drives you into what you want to be fast, right? I want to be able to find all the FAQs by, a tag, right? So I want those tags to be indexed and fast. So I could say, let me find all the FAQs that are about data, or all the FAQs that are about queuing. And so then you're starting to think about how your data is going to come out of the system. And that's just a different approach than people are accustomed to. But it's very effective, especially with systems like DynamoDB, MongoDB, and CouchDB, because you're thinking about index first instead of a side effect like, oh, I could just query anything and it'll come to me, and then I'll make it fast later. And there's like a name for that kind of design pattern, but I would have to pull it up. I can't remember. So. But you're right. There would need to be some guidance on, here's how you kind of think about data modeling with these kinds of APIs. Cool. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts?
Not from me.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. In the next week, I should have the new Hyperstore up with taking some of these great graphics and putting them on shirts and swag. And I'll be sending you guys some updates on that. And thanks to everyone for all of your help. Really appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you guys, just let me know. Have a great day.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. You too.
Have a good
Thanks.
one.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.